Hi, I'm Dale Beaumont and welcome to Get Published TV. This is the only dedicated show on the internet to help you to write, publish and market your own best-selling book. Now, joining me today is the author of this book here called Sugar Daddy. His name is Adam Fraser. He's Dr. Adam Fraser, and he's going to be telling us about his experience in getting this book into print. So thanks very much for joining us.
Pleasure, Dave.
Adam.
Absolute pleasure.
Do I call you Dr. Adam?
No, Adam will be fine.
Just Adam's fine. All right, well, tell us a bit about your professional background, because we haven't had a doctor on the show before. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, I was trained as a physiologist, which we study the human body, how it responds to different things. We look at how it works and why it doesn't work. And part of my PhD looked at how glucose and insulin work in the body. So how do you get those two things to work right? Because those two things affect pretty much everything in our body, like our sleep patterns, our energy levels, and one of the biggest things is whether we get diabetes or not. So that's why I wrote Sugar Daddy, because that's what my background sort of led me to. And we have a company called the Glucose Club, and what we do is help people change their lifestyles to prevent these sort of metabolic conditions. And everyone in the Glucose Club was saying, when are you going to write the book? And we finally did it.
Right, so it's a subject that you obviously know a lot about because of your professional background.
I think I do, after about 13 years, yeah.
And you're also pretty passionate about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
The impact that it's had on a lot of people.
And the biggest thing about metabolic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, obesity is they can be stopped, they can be prevented. So that's why we're so passionate about it.
Yeah, great. Now, coming from a more of an academic background, you'd be used to obviously writing theses and reports and so how is it transitioning from doing the academic sort of stuff to actually more what we'd suppose call mainstream or more for the average book reader?
It was very, very hard, actually, really hard, because the academic world or the scientific world, and this is one of the things I don't like about it, is you have to write a certain way, and it's very clinical, it's very you take all the humour or it's almost you take your personality out and then write something, and I hated that style of writing. And one thing that helped me get ready for the book was I started to write a lot of articles for magazines and newspapers and my website, and a lot of journos taught me how to write, or I'd send off what I'd written. They'd send it back and I'd compare and go, well, why did they change this? And so I spent a lot of time thinking about how I should write.
So what were a couple of those tips that they gave you, or a few of the things that you had to, I suppose, unlearn in order to become more of a mainstream writer?
Well, the main thing they taught me was that it's got to flow like a conversation. Also, you've got to paint mental pictures, you've got to use metaphors, descriptive language, which certainly is not part of academia. So the main ones was it's got to feel like you are talking to someone, having a conversation, and you've got to engage the reader with descriptive language, paint pictures. They're probably the main ones.
And I suppose having examples that real people can actually relate to, as opposed to only ones that other academic people would understand.
Oh, certainly. You've got to. One of the biggest things I learnt from writing for magazines and also writing Sugar Daddy is you've got to give them tools, techniques, tips right up front that they can use straight away, and you've really got to engage them and give them a reason why to continue reading. You've probably got a paragraph to grab their attention.
Yeah, and the other thing which is I'm also fascinated about as well, the book it's fairly solid. It's over 200 pages, but I'm guessing that you probably had about 1,000 pages worth of knowledge. So how did you really decide what to kind of let go of or what to actually cut?
I think because I co-wrote this book with my wife, and we talked about it like it was our baby. Truly we fell in love with this thing, but the problem is that you're biased and you think that people want to know far more than they really need to. So what we looked at was constantly editing down so that it was punchy, so that it didn't labour the point. We made the point, gave them an example, and then moved on. So it's really, and I don't know whether you can be objective about that. You have to get someone else to read that, because you fall in love with the thing and you think it's wonderful, and it may not be. And you've really got to think, when you read it, look at what's someone from the outside going to think about this. And we sent it out to friends, we sent it out to people who didn't really know to read it before we even sent it to the editor.
Yep.
To say, what do we need here? Is this good? And we asked people, don't say it's great. Because one of the problems is we sent it to our mothers, and what did they send back? Oh my God, we're so proud of you. You know, thanks, but we don't need that right now. What we need is that bit sucked, get rid of it.
Yep.
That bit's great, extend it. I didn't understand any of that chapter, those sorts of things. So
that's really good feedback, is tell people, don't say that you like it, tell me what I can improve.
Yeah, don't stroke my ego, help my bank balance, you know. Like, tell me what I can do to make it better.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that was really important.
And did you also like get feedback from people that were in your industry as well?
Very much so.
Associations? Because I imagine with the topic of diabetes, there are a lot of professional organisations out there that support people, and it would be wise to have them on board from the beginning.
Yeah, I think if you're going to write a book, you've got to think about the industry that surrounds that book. And what I've found is the scientific industry or the health industry are very cynical. They are looking at ways to knock you down. They don't really reward entrepreneurship very well. It's a tall poppy syndrome. How can we knock you down? And I suppose it comes from academia, where we're constantly trying to pull things apart, nitpick, and challenge. So we knew that we had to get their backing, so we sent it to people in the industry. We sent it to one of Australia's top endocrinologists. We sent it to diabetes educators. We sent it to people with diabetes who had it for a long period of time, so that they would give us feedback. Yeah, so absolutely, we sent it to them. And some things we ignored because they were just conservative and painful. Yeah, they would say, like one person sent back, said, don't call it sugar daddy, because you're talking about sugar, and that's not the message we want to send out. And sugar daddy's not about sugar, it's about that negative voice inside your head. So, and it's about getting control of that. Now, we sent that book to people with diabetes, who is our audience. They loved the title. They thought it was fabulous. Whereas a couple academics went, oh, we hate that title. And we went, well, who are we writing this for? We're writing it for the general public. They love it. So,
totally.
Back in your box.
I can't remember who said this, but it was someone very famous. They said, I can't give you a recipe for success, but I can give you one for failure, and that's try to please everybody.
Exactly.
Because
you've got to weigh it up.
You have to weigh it up. Now, I know a lot of people would be interested, because they always ask, how long did it take you to put this book together? Whatever the answer is, that's fine.
It's an interesting answer.
Okay.
It took a long time. I've been talking about this book for a long time. Chris and I were on a train going from Venice to Rome, and we sat down and we talked about the Glucose Club and the fact that everyone complained about the books out there. Yeah. They said the books were inhuman. They talked about the disease, not the person that got it. So they'd have it's a lifestyle disease, type 2. So they'd have 30 pages on lifestyle, and then the rest would be how you're going to die from this thing and all the doom and gloom. And everyone kept complaining. We thought, well, let's turn this thing on its head and talk about a book that shows them what they can do, that gives them hope, that inspires them. And we wrote the structure of the book on a train from Venice to Rome, so we weren't really doing it tough. Yeah. But we scripted out what the chapters were going to be. Then I took a week off and locked myself in my room. I think I started about 5:30 every day and finished around 9:30 at night. And I just wrote almost 80,000 words.
Wow.
Where I just opened my head and it poured out. Now, my biggest problem is that I start a project, and then once it's almost done, I lose enthusiasm for it. Now, that structure was all over the place. Then my wife, Chris, who's far more intelligent than I am, came along and finished it and packaged it and put it together. And while I was out playing with other projects. She finished this one. She put the rigour around it. She actually made it readable. And then together we sort of finished it at the end.
That's really good, knowing what your strengths are and finding other people.
Yeah, I'm good at, sort of more the ideas. Chris is good at making that idea suit the world.
Yeah.
And if we'd have tried to do both of those processes together, we'd probably be divorced.
Yeah.
But what we realised what our strengths were, and we really knuckled down and got it done.
Yeah. But you, am I right in saying the bulk of the book was just a weeks of full-time writing, and then there was obviously a period to get it all edited, which is more time?
Yeah.
But the majority was in 1 week?
The majority went down in a week.
Wow.
And then we
very impressive.
We played around. Because I think I try not to edit it. I just let sort of verbal diarrhea come out into the process, and then we structured the book and looked at how you can fit it together and how you can make it applicable.
Awesome. Now, one of the things you said a couple of minutes ago I think is so important that I want to pick up on again is you sort of were already talking about how you wanted to have your book different from everything else that's out there.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, have a point of difference with your book. And I always say, finish this sentence. My book is the first book about whatever diabetes that, and finish the sentence. So what is different, what's special? Because there's no point doing something that's already been done before. You've got to be sort of breaking new ground. And so tell us about, and I think it'll really help people to get these ideas inside their head so they can do the same thing with their own topic area. Because you said you looked at other books.
Yeah.
And what you found was...
I went to Borders bookstore, and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and I got out every book on diabetes, and I laid them out on the floor. They were not impressed. But I just went, what do they all have in common, and what are they doing wrong? And I looked at it, and what they were doing wrong is the book was either full of recipes, which, like, I'll buy a recipe book if I want recipes. If I want to control diabetes, I've got to understand it and be able to change my lifestyle for that. The other one was that they talked about, and the thing that sort of jumped out at me is they called them diabetics.
Yes.
I'm like, they are people who happen to have diabetes. They don't no longer lose their identity. And they talked about the disease, and they said this thing's going to make your feet fall off, and it's going to send you blind. And I just went, my gosh, I want to slash my wrists, and I've only read bits of these books. So to finish your sentence, what's different is it's written in a funny way, which is why it's called Sugar Daddy. It talks about hope. It has case studies in there. No other book we found out there talked about people who got diabetes and then conquered it. So that made it different. It was written in a fun way, which I mentioned before, but the language is enthusiastic, and we have jokes in there, and it's funny. And the biggest one we looked at is that all books are a one-way conversation.
Yes.
So no matter who I am, I read the book and I get the same information.
Yep.
We flip that on its head, and what we do is profile people right up front, because you will fit in 6 different categories, and then depending which category you're in, and the category is what's your attitude towards a healthy lifestyle.
Yep.
So we have an exercise-free zone is one category. So they are people who are attached to a lounge, never exercise, eat, take out every night. And then we have the exercise evangelist who loves exercise and does it regularly. So we have all these different profiles. Depending on what you fit into, you have to do it differently. So if I have a good lifestyle where I exercise quite well and I eat quite well, what I need to get out of that book is different to someone who's never thought about exercise, has a terrible diet. They've got to do things very differently. So what we think makes the book really unique is you read the book differently, and the advice is different depending on where you fit into that category.
And talking about that point of difference as well, the other thing that I imagine is different to a lot of other books, they're just full of heavy text. What you've got here is you've got checklists, and you've got simple yet effective diagrams in here as well. You've got summaries, which I guess is never in an academic journal. Imagine if that so I can see that it doesn't look intimidating to me, which is I think important, and I always call it the flick test. You know,
Yeah.
people will look at the cover, they'll read the title and the subtitle. If that grabs them, they'll turn over, they'll read the back, and then they'll do the flick. And if your book just looks tough, they'll probably go, oh, geez, it's going to be hard work.
Well, actually, we designed that after you told me about the flick test. Like, most of this book is dependent on the advice you gave, which we very much needed. Because it was the original draft was very text heavy, and it was quite overwhelming. And if you do look through the book, it's got breakout boxes, it's got summaries, it's got tips, it's got a thing called Sugar Daddy's tip, and that is like a really important thing they've got to do. It's got lots of diagrams. The other thing is also that it links back to our website, where people can access audio or video that will really illustrate that point but give another dimension to it.
Awesome. Okay, want to just talk about a couple of other quick things. So you wrote the book, it was all there, you had the help of your wife to pull it all together, and then how did you go about the editing, the design and printing process? Is there any little tips that you can give us on what you learned through that?
Well, mostly we followed your advice, where we got it to a certain point where it was ready to edit. We found an editor and we interviewed a series of editors and got them to send us some stuff. Now, one of the editors, well, the actual editor we used, had a blog, and we read her blog, and it was hilarious and funny, and it was just, we really had, you know, a meld between our personalities and how we wanted the book to sound.
Yeah.
And we had other editors who were probably fantastic, but just didn't have the tone of the book that we wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. We met the editor, and we had dinner, and we talked about what we wanted the book to do, and she was right on ball. And she sent us a couple of pages, and she was brilliant, like absolutely brilliant. And we drafted up a contract, and she was great. So once we got it edited, we found a typesetter who a number of recommendations from you. We found a typesetter, and we went through the book and really said, this is how we want it to look. And we actually made notes all the way through of this has to be in a breakout box, this has to be this has to be that. And we really did our research around different books and what we wanted them to look like.
Yes.
And we conveyed that to the typesetter. Lots of communication, lots of meetings, so that they could just go, bang, I know what I've got to do. And that streamlined it.
And one of the pieces of advice that I gave you was on the number of copies to actually print. So do you want to talk us through that and whether or not that was a good decision or not a good decision?
We wanted to print up 5,000 copies. And basically I stalked you through this whole process. And every decision I rang you and said, is this a good one?
Yeah.
Or accessed... actually, I think you sent me an audio file that pretty much answered everything we wanted. So we listened to that a number of times, and every time we were about to make a decision, we either called you or listened to that file. And one of the ones was they asked us how many copies we wanted to print. And of course, we're going to take over the world, so we wanted to print like 5,000. And you said, don't do that. And we had conversations like...
Should I trust him?
yeah. Chris and I going, oh, should we? It's going to be cheaper if we do this. And I said, no, he hasn't steered us wrong yet. So we got a small number done up.
Because it's so seductive,
goodness,
isn't it? It's seductive when you see the numbers and think it's so much cheaper to print 5,000.
Exactly. Or, it gets to the point where you're sick of looking at it. I just want it done, and I want to get out there. And thank God we didn't. I mean, the spine is upside down. The font is too small. Now, on the computer, it looked great, but the font is too small, especially for an older demographic.
Yes.
We found that because this is the old version, it doesn't have a title page.
Yep.
Like, how did we miss that? Like, how do you miss a title page? It has, the acknowledgements are in the wrong place. We didn't have a barcode. That line is too small. That takes up too much room. We got it redesigned with all those tips, and the new version is brilliant. Yeah. It's easier to read. The cover is slicker. The back is far better. The spine is on the right way. One of the other things is we didn't have a company that, because we self-published, we didn't have a company that says we published this book. So we registered a company. There were so many things. As soon as we got it, we thought, oh my gosh.
And what's so good about this is how much better do you feel when you hand over a new version of the book that you're happy with, as opposed to when you sort of shudder and go, oh, here it is.
Because we'd hand it to people and go, oh, well, it's going to be, the font's going to be bigger, and we had so many people.
Apologising, and it's not healthy. Or when you promote your book, you want to be proud, you want to give it to them and say, here it is. And know that it's the best you could do.
Yeah, and a really important point is get some made up and send that out to people that know books.
Yeah.
Because I sent it to you and you called me, and an hour and a half later, you had an hour and a half of changes to make to that. We sent it to our PR person who does PR for books. As soon as she opened it, she went, "Where's the title page?"
Yeah.
I'm thinking, gosh, where is the title page? And then we sent it to some book distributors, like people that actually sell books for a living, and they gave their feedback. So we took all of that, changed the book, and
now, here's the point: if you'd printed 5,000 and you asked them to distribute, they say, look, we can't distribute it without a barcode, and the other thing that they actually gave you feedback. So I know that they would not have distributed your book with this current edition.
Yeah, they said it was a deal breaker. They said we love the book, but there's certain things that
there's nothing we can do.
We cannot distribute that book.
So all of those additional copies would have just sat in your garage, and you would have been selling them for the next 3 years. Or they would have had to be pulped. And for me,
I just feel ill at the thought of us having 5,000 of those books.
Yeah,
it would have been a disaster financially, emotionally, which would have been the biggest thing. I would have resented the book.
Yeah.
And I'm a perfectionist, so I would have lost sleep on that one. Yeah.
All right, well, we need to wrap up soon, but tell me, having had this book out there, and it's now going out into bookshops, which is fantastic with the new version, of course, but what difference has it made in your life, either personally, or what impact has it had on your business, or on the people who have benefited from the book? How's it changed your world?
In so many ways. As soon as we opened it and held it for the first time, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was just, oh my gosh, all these years, all this hard work, it just felt great. And emotionally it gave a lot to the business. It's such a credibility builder. You talk to people in meetings, you take that along, go, well, look, here's my book. We had so many deals in the pipeline with companies around different things. Now that they can see the book, it's a completely different conversation. It just separates you apart. It was a great exercise to get our IP all in one place. Like, we became better. We learned so much from it. Our clients buy the book, they love it. They send us emails and say it completely changed the way I look at my health, my well-being. Also, people respect it. It is a big deal to write a book. It is a massive undertaking.
Because a lot of people just says, it's just my book. It's like, well, wait a sec, you've done something that, less than 0.01% of the population will ever do in their life. And what's so awesome is that for generations and generations to come, I always think, when someone's looking through their family tree and they come to this name, Dale Beaumont, they're going to say, what did this person do with their life?
Yeah.
And if you've got something that you can show them as part of it's not your life's work, but it's a part of your life. What a gift that you're giving that next generation.
Absolutely. And in our industry, we're part of an industry that, we're part of a professional body around exercise physiologists, and no one in that had written a book on that area. And also, I would say 20 of them told me I could not write a book. They said, you can't.
Yeah.
You know, you'll never do it. And so it has totally changed our business, totally changed our mindset. It's opened up doors that we could never get anywhere near.
All right, well, just before we close, what advice would you give, or what words would you say to someone else that maybe was where you were, say, 12 months ago, thinking, love to write a book, but don't think I can. Other people have told me that I can't. What would you say to them?
I think the main thing is understand why do people need this? Why will your book be different? What's important about it? The biggest piece of advice is talk to someone who knows what they're doing. I had you, luckily. I just think if I did not have you helping me, I'd probably be in a straitjacket in a corner in the fetal position. I just would have wasted so much time and money. So do your due diligence around it. Find someone who knows what they're going to do, and listen to them.
Yeah.
Don't try and do it on your own. It would be insane.
Because I'm very grateful that I've had mentors as well, and you don't realise a 5-minute conversation with someone that knows what they're talking about. How much impact can that just 5 minutes have?
Yeah, I mean, the conversation we had where I called you and said, Dale, how many copies do I get printed? I'm looking at doing 5,000. If I hadn't have made that phone call...
Probably saved you $20,000.
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah, so find someone that knows what they're doing and listen to them.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up this video. Please leave us your comments below. Adam has shared some great tips and some great advice, which I really hope that you've taken to heart and you're going to use on your journey to write and publish your own book. So leave us your comments, and we'll see you next time on Get Published TV.